Okay, well, let's move on to chess then, although StarCraft is far more important, of course. Just for the record, you are on record now, so I'm recording.
Cool.
This was the game where I started looking at your games yesterday.
May we share screens, please?
Absolutely, although I would have thought that by now we can do it blindfolded, but clearly not.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm
I
kidding,
might
sorry,
for a
mate.
second.
I always do this, all the time.
Here we go.
So, yeah, I didn't want to spend the whole entire lesson today on analyzing your games, but having seen these, I thought that they definitely do need a fair bit of attention. Right, Scandinavian defense, as you know. What is the best move for white here?
Well, I always used to play knight c3 because you get the tempo straight away, but I
Very good.
started favoring knight f3 because then you can get in c4, d4.
Yep, so you need to prefer knight c3 exactly for the reasons that you said, which is that you get to play this with a tempo. The problem with knight f3 among a fair few things is that it allows me to play e5. And as you know, we prefer to play chess in the center, and that's the main trump card with knight c3, that after stock standard queen a5, you get to play d4.
Okay.
Okay, and if they play now e5, then you take it, and then after bishop e2, you will get another tempo, which pretty much leads to an immediate disaster. Whereas after knight f3 e5, you actually don't get to play that mentioned c4 d4.
Sure.
Okay, so we need to stick with knight c3 here. Okay, so and even yeah, I really don't get how you play d4 here, because
Not
if
straight away, but you get in, yeah.
yeah, never.
Okay.
Like, this is a fundamentally really poor position for white, because he played c4 before d4, and consequently now you have a backward pawn here, a weak square here, and unless you play d4 right now, which I think you should, with a slightly worse position, if you let me play knight c6 and then castles here, that's a dream position for black. Excuse me. So yeah, this is basically why this whole move order fails very badly. But luckily for you, he played queen c5, which is atrocious. Okay. I would have preferred knight c3, to be honest, but I guess it doesn't really matter. And even here, I would have played knight c3 in a heartbeat. Okay, so what you're seeing here is that your opponent keeps on playing queen moves like 1, 2, 3, 4 queen moves. That is a disaster. And if that's the case, you don't worry about hanging pawns anymore. So
Okay.
yes, bishop c3 defends both of them, and no, you didn't need to defend either. Because after knight c3, which is a far better move because it develops a new piece, none of them can actually be captured. Queen takes b2 is met by rook b1, rook b7, which
Yep.
is heavy damage. And bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes d4 is even worse on account of this.
Ah, okay. I didn't
So
know
you
that.
always find that when you are ahead in development, especially this far ahead, whilst pawn may appear to be hanging, tactical counter-strikes almost exclusively prove them impossible to capture. And
Yeah.
really, after bishop c3, where will this knight go? I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
yes,
bit.
he can go to d2, but that's not really how you would want to, punish a player who plays 75 queen moves in the first 76 moves of a game.
Hmm.
Right, c5. You have to be careful with this because that weakens a lot of white squares. And you might find that this bishop is going to hate you a lot for doing that to him, because if I can put a knight in here, then I blocked off a lot of pawns on black, which means that this bishop is totally out of play. And once again, this is something I told you last week. You tend to swing into action before completing development.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's not desired. And I didn't quite get this one. Was it a mouse slip?
Um,
Because for the life of me, I don't see what happens if I take it.
yeah, I can't remember this game particularly well.
Oh, you had this sneaky check here.
I
Aren't
did.
aren't you a clever lad? You
That's
outsmarted
right.
you
That's right.
you outsmarted your international master coach, which of course still begs the question that, okay, then what if I take this way?
Then I was looking at knight e5, I think.
Yes, but that doesn't seem to work because takes, and I just take you back, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we just swapped queens, and you're 2 pawns down because you're about to drop that dude too. Okay, so credit for that that clever check trick. But yeah, in the end of the day, it wasn't quite sound. Okay, knight d2, and if I recall rightly, from here on he went down here very, very fast. I would. Okay, what do you think is a very good move here for white instead of queen c3?
We had bishop to b5.
Bingo.
Dang.
That hurts, doesn't it?
Yep, that would have been nice.
Yes, stock standard stuff, and they place their queen in the Scandinavian on c6, which is potentially the worst square. That it gets pinned all the time. Okay, so instead we are going for different types of tactics. My problem with this is that it doesn't really create a threat. Yeah, so as long as I don't take you, I don't really see what's up your sleeve. So let's say I castle. If your plan is to take me, well then you're just straightening my pawn structure and allowing me to conquer the center even more, right? So you should have been reluctant to do that and play something like either knight b3 to defend the pawn, and then knight d4. Trapping that queen would have been quite handy. Yeah, so let me show you. Knight b3, castles, knight d4, queen a4, bishop b5. And that looks like a plan.
Yep.
Well executed. And so they can't castle, they have to deal with knight d4, which is a beautiful square for your knight anyway. And it seems like we have got some sort of strategy in place by wanting to put this knight on d4, blockading the d5 pawn, and then castle. And then we have got a beautiful initiative for the sacrifice material.
Yep,
Whereas now, after f takes, I don't know what we would have had. Okay, I don't get this move. So what's the plan now, my friend?
I was looking for ways to
Get out of this mess.
Yeah.
But I don't. That's a very good thing that you feel like, oh, shoot, we are in trouble here. Let's get out of it. That's exactly what I want to do. I just don't understand how this does it. So my question is, what's gonna be your next move? Because your next move then turned out to be queen f3. So I still don't understand this.
Yeah, I think it was just a really premature prophylactic move.
Yeah, so
One of those, it'll be maybe useful eventually, but just
yeah, you
gonna
can't
keep.
afford doing that now because you have got a burning problem, which is that your king is stuck in the middle and you're pinned. So we need to sort it out very, very quickly, otherwise your position is going to collapse. And the best way to do this would have been to play knight f3. Then knight d4 comes with the tempo, so let's say he does the same that he did in the game, hitting the queen and guarding the bishop.
Yep.
And wherever the queen goes, you just castle out of this mess, and again, c6 is pending, tearing your opponent's king apart, winning the game on the spot, so they probably would have to waste a move on playing c6 themselves.
Yep.
Okay, so h3 was a very unfortunate pass move here. Oh, come on. Okay, b4. Yeah, at least it's aggressive, which is something I like. Did you see that there was a check here that would have hurt you?
Oh, no, I didn't. But I'm still in the pin. I haven't sorted out my pin
Yes,
problem
so check followed by knight f4, double attack on this, and this would have ended the game. But you got lucky there a little bit. Very good. Oh, and he blundered a piece. Okay. Well, you fought well. There were lots of inaccuracies in that game, but the fighting was certainly there. Oh, how did it end up being 2 rooks? Did we lose that piece back, or...? Wow, isn't this hanging?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
it was.
Okay. And even if it wasn't, you should play king g2 here because that covers the pawn, and if knight f4 check, then king f3.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and we are just chasing the knight away instead of dropping pawns everywhere now. Okay. What do you think is best move for white here?
Rook A to E1.
Excellent. So remember that one of my top axioms in chess is never go backwards.
Yeah.
So this is no way this can be a good move. Especially because this is not hanging. This is. So what I would do as white here is I would play rook e1. Not sure what best is really to defend the mate. Maybe there, I don't know. I would get rid of with that rook immediately. King here, and although this may be very strong, I would then guard this pawn here and just play rook e7 next and attack 7 pawns on the back rank and win.
That looks a lot nicer.
Yeah, so that looks like a very convenient and easy way to finish this game.
I think I realize, and this is something that's a problem in a lot of my games, is like I realize if I miss like the hanging knight or something like that, or I lose a piece, like it gets into my head, and then I immediately go into like passive defensive
Yeah,
mode.
you need to look at every single move as a fight between you and your opponent, and if you seem to miss something like king h2 knight f2, then okay, we lost that round on move 27. Move 28 is a new round of exchange punches, and that's the next one that you need to win. The game is by no means over. In fact, the assessment hasn't changed just because the pawn dropped. I mean, okay, it's not as good as it was, but you're still totally winning. And in fact, in such cases, you should all the more look for aggression instead of passivity, because if we lose the majority of our advantage, then we actively have to work on building it up again, and passive moves are not gonna do that for you. Okay, so we went in there. Okay, all right. Passive moves forward, always forward, especially with a king in an endgame. It's very, very bad location for the king on g1. I would have pinched this dude in a heartbeat here.
Oh no, free pawns. I don't take them.
I know that this is a pass pawn, but yeah, it's 55 kilometers away from the baseline. Okay, your opponent is very keen about losing this game very fast. Okay, time to bring the knight into the fray. So I would play knight e3 here without too much hesitation. And then there, and then there, and then bang. Yeah, you can't win a game with pieces like this. You need to activate your stuff. Okay, that was good. That's good too. Okay. I would have gone towards e3, because then you always have f5 as your next jump, which is going to protect your pawn that you so badly need protected. Whereas if you choose this route that you did in the game, then now you can't defend the pawn, and it's getting awkward.
Oh yeah.
Now this should have been played, and then you can still keep on rocking up.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, whilst I like this knight, rook here would have been quite sensible too.
Okay.
And now we are on the right path. Very good. Forward. Charge. The best square for this king would be if you could hide it here.
Oh, okay.
Because then we are already close enough to create weaving some mating nets, and they can't really check you anymore sensibly. But anyway, if you move next to an opponent's pawn that is hanging, you always have a choice between taking or tucking behind. That's very pleasant. Whoa! What's that? Oh, you have a beauty mate. Oh, man.
Being a bit fancy here.
Loving the style here. Loving the style. Choke there. Oh, and they fell for your mate. Yeah. Spark, finish. I like that. Goody. Alright, so I was just curious how you lost the piece in the end, but apparently you sacked it for some flashy finish to impress me. Good. Okay, I have had a look at this. All right, in this position, it would have been better to go back to d3 because this one is gonna be very, very severely fortified by c6.
Okay, yeah.
And I know you think that I'm contradicting to what I said last week,
No.
but last week we were talking about a pawn structure where white still had a pawn here, and this dude was back here. So
Sure.
d5 was not a realistic breakout. Here it has happened, and now this is the right diagonal because that's not going to be blocked off, whereas this one might prove difficult to actually use. Good. Okay, not this way. So they should have played his c6. That seems to be hanging, right?
Is that another free pawn I didn't take?
No, that was a free knight that you dropped. Look. Ta-da!
Oh no. Actually,
That hurts.
does he take it?
Yes, knight e2, knight g3, knight f5 was the correct path for the knight. So now we are super duper dead. Oh, and we lost the game too. Oh, okay. So here I think you got a bit carried away. Slightly gung-ho mode.
Yeah. Big knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, all in. All in. All right. Well, look. Yeah, this didn't go our way, so I'm not going to comment on this game much. But sometimes you find that people on this level still blunder pieces back without any concern whatsoever. So if for no other reason than for that, it's well worth trying to fight and play your best still instead of throwing random pieces at them. Yeah, I didn't understand this game at all. Like, he just randomly resigned here. What was that?
Oh, I don't know if that guy maybe he had to go to the shops or something.
And we seem to have played a fair few interesting moves here. So after d3, knight d4 seems to blunder this, right?
Yeah.
So what was the plan?
Just barreling down on f2.
Yeah, but that's not happening, is it? Instead, what's happening is that they are hitting you down on f7. So either d6 or castles. I would have gone with d6 here.
Okay.
And then you can do action. So once again, we are still guilty of lunging at our opponent with random moves when you are totally undeveloped. And the punishment should always come for that. Luckily it didn't. And here, yeah, I'm not sure about this check. I would have probably dropped back here. And then he just resigned. Curiously enough, there is a tactical trick here that may work with queen e8 attacking both of the knights. But for starters, it's white to move. So it's not really likely to happen. So I have no idea what happened here. But yeah, the bottom line, Josh, is that you need to play your openings with a bit more calmness and patience, I think is a good word. Because this is not a bad move if it's prepared. But it certainly wasn't. So it kept on hanging stuff.
I think what was actually happening, because those games were happening pretty early in the morning. And
4 o'clock, holy cow.
Getting pretty close to 1700, so I think I was a little bit
Too excited.
Too excited.
Too eager. Alright.
Kills. It's no good.
So I will go back up now and just have a look at chronologically what's happening here. Okay. If you are playing this system against the Scheveningen and the Najdorf, it's a very, very good choice. What you need to know again, sorry to repeat myself so many times, is not to get into action before developing your pieces. So bishop e3 is the correct move here. Simply because the bishop belongs there, it covers the knight, it allows you to execute the maneuver queen e1, queen g3. Yep. Which is one of the main lines. The other one is that the bishop comes here and then we play g4, g5. It's an awesome fun variation, but you can't just, again, charge at your opponent without developing your stuff. And we're just losing a piece now. Bang. Okay, so I thought that your idea was to take here first and then retake this, but even then it would have been a very shaky strategy. So
we kind of touched on this opening last week, and I think the problem was I looked at it very briefly, but I didn't spend a lot of time on it. So I had these kind of half concocted ideas in my head of,
oh look,
I mean,
e5 is a valid plan once these knights are off the board and you are developed. But this is ridiculously early
sure.
to go for the neck right away, given especially that black hasn't made any mistakes yet. Okay, so now it's all good and dandy. And I would probably have preferred in this position something like bishop f4, simply because after bishop f3, I think that knight takes e5 is possible. And I'm guarding there and hitting there at the same time, which is super duper annoying. Yeah?
Yeah.
So just guard it and then go there next. Mind you, if you guard it and they castle here, there is always a temptation to place the bishop here, because you want to mate them there. But then again, after bishop d3, knight c5 is an annoying move, because then the bishop might be swapped off. But then again, we might have a winning attack here by check, 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 and then rook f3, and then rook here and then mate.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing here is rather just highlighting plans and which way the game should develop. Quite frankly, I believe that the best positional move here would be knight e4, simply to put the knight in the center and deny this, and then bishop d3.
Okay,
but now I'm getting ahead of myself, so we are going to talk about this type of strategy when we analyze these openings a bit more in depth. Okay, so we still drop that pawn. Good. Good. Very good. Whoa! See? This is what consistently good moves do to your opponents on this level. So let's have a look at what happened here. You created a pin. He goes like, oh crap, I don't like this. So let's play something developing that totally doesn't respond to it, which is already logical. More pressure on the pin. Beautiful. Bishop f6. Now, I think he may have a threat here by taking here.
I looked at that as well, and
because otherwise I would promote the idea of rook e1 winning this piece, but I'm afraid that because of knight takes f3, we can't do that. Which is why I again said well done for queen c5, which is a super annoying move because it denies castling from your opponent whilst maintaining the pressure on the pinned piece. And in fact, again, rook e1 next is going to be a super duper cool move.
yeah, I was pretty afraid of knight takes bishop and some discoveries on the queen as well.
And so all you needed to do was to play 3 powerful moves, which the last 3 moves have been, and he's just blundering a piece. Bang, bang, bang. This is how chess games end on this level. If you play 3 very good moves in a row, they tend to collapse. And it's not like I underestimate or judge people on that level. It's just the nature of the game.
Yeah,
Let's call this a mouse slip, shall we?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Alright, so what the heck? Even this move is very sad because you have a hanging pawn here, so why don't we push this dude up here?
This fell apart in a pretty bad way.
Yep. Indeed. Alright, so what would be a good aggro move here to try to exploit the fact that his king is in a bit dicey situation?
Rook to f1.
Rook to f1 is second best. That was my original idea when I phrased the question, but then I realized that there is an even better move here. I tell you what the problem is with rook f1, and then you will probably work it out. If rook f1, I have got king g6, and if check, then f5. And I managed to avoid the disaster.
Maybe lead with bishop to e4.
Exactly, bishop e4 is a better way to start it, because then we take away the king g6 option from them. And now almost certainly they are going to drop at least one pawn on f7 because of the upcoming check.
Sure.
Okay. Oh, wow. Bishop d4. The dude kept on dropping pawns like there was no tomorrow here. Like
Yeah.
5 in a row. That's spectacular.
I got pretty lucky, especially after just blundering my knight for no
Yeah.
reason.
But look, you should not look at it as lucky. You fought yourself back into this game, unlike you did with the one where you sacked away 3 pieces. So to some extent, it was a deserved win. If you work for it, you deserve it. Okay, so this is a perfect opening so far, and I quite like d5 here too. d6, b3. Okay, that is a bit of a mystery.
I never really know how to handle these like super pawn storm.
Um, think about it logically. We are playing an opening, yeah? So what is the aim of the opening? You need to do 2 things. Control center, develop pieces. Has he done any of this so far?
A little bit of controlling the
A
center.
tiny bit of controlling the center, but by allowing you to play d5, you're dominating that center, yeah?
Yeah.
No piece development to speak of whatsoever. This is an utter disaster that you see here. So care factor about what he's doing here, nil, and strongly dropping. Yeah, so I would not acknowledge this by responding to it in any way. In fact, you can ask yourself, does he have a threat? Because I'm not seeing one.
Mm.
So why would you then respond to what's happening here? Like, you have got so many developing moves to play that look really good that there is no way I would bother even looking at what he's trying to do here, or what, his agenda is. If b4 you if he's playing b4, you drop back and you go around.
Sure.
And every single pawn move, remember, that you make creates some sort of concessions, because those pawns are not going to be able to go back. So more than likely there will be positional weaknesses behind them. If you were to actually punish this formation and the fact that he hasn't developed well enough, then instead of playing b3, which does not respond to anything that is happening currently in the position, you should have preferred a4.
Sure.
Because that forces my hand to do something. Take is almost exclusively out of the question, because it breaks the pawn chain up and creates 2 isolated pawns. And if I push it in, then he actually committed to one of the pushes, so you don't really have this annoying feeling that, oh, this is pending, this fluid pawn structure is just so annoying. It has become a very rigid pawn structure with a giant weak square here. So now you can even afford drop back, which we normally hate to do with a passion, simply because this knight is going to re-emerge here, and it's an uncontested square. They can't kick you out of here.
Sure.
And that is something that we love with passion. Outposts for knights where they can't touch you. But I also would have considered in this position bishop g5. Yeah, even I was looking at e5 to break them in the center. And I'm not sure if it's good or not, but I like to punish my opponents when they play, this pawn moves type of chess. Okay, so this is actually a clever idea from them. They need to close the position off, because if it cracks open, their their development disadvantage will tell. In fact, you can even take here. Bishop takes a4, b4, and then knight d5. God, what a huge position it is.
Sure.
It's a beautiful knight. Bishop is coming to back it up, and he's just wasting his life with playing pawn moves. Okay, bishop e3, good. Knight f6. You have to be careful whenever you put a bishop on e3 that it can always be hassled with knight g4, which tends to be a bit of a pain. Bishop d3. Bishop e7. Now again, I would really like to see a4, so that his hand is forced to push it and then regroup the knight to c4.
Yep.
Okay, that would have been really good.
Yeah, cool.
I would have probably dropped the bishop back here, just to float this knight takes b5 threat. Perhaps. Nothing wrong with queen d2. And I do not like swapping queens when ahead in space. So again, a4, b4, and now knight e2 followed by knight g3 looks like a very good plan. So building up some sort of kingside initiative. Moving this knight away and pawn f4.
Sure.
Yeah, once again, look at how beautifully your army is developed. They are ready to strike, whereas I still have a whole entire section of the board untouched. Luckily he decided not to like your proposal. c4. Once again, I prefer to strike from this end because that way the bishop is also operating. If you play c4, you allow them to play b4 and then play a5, a4 and start to build up some pressure on the queen side by opening the a file.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a scenario that we call the rule of line opening. So I'm going to play it out for you. I'm just playing a few lemon moves so that you understand what I'm talking about. This is always an undesired scenario to be in because you can never take, because that means that after rook takes you have got a constant weakness here.
Yep.
But you always have to reckon with them taking you and doing something to you on the a file. So this is the scenario that we call the rule of line opening, where they can do whatever they see fit and you can't touch them, and it's a constantly pending annoying issue. And they can actually build on it by first developing their pieces, then tripling up all the heavies. So rook up here, rook behind, queen behind, then open, and then penetrate.
Yeah, sure.
And that is just a pain. And you could have avoided that, oopsies, by pushing this pawn up. Because if they push it in now, this is not executable, and this one is not going anywhere, obviously.
Sure.
Okie dokie. Yeah, knight g4 is a bit annoying, so probably h3 was timely here. Or any time before queen d2, really. Okay, attack! That's what you like, isn't it? Right, h4 seems to be hanging to me.
Yeah, I don't really know what I was thinking with that. I think I might have mouse slipped h3.
Well, h3 makes very little sense because you want to play h4. So, if anything, king g2, rook h1, h4.
I did eventually do something like
I don't
that,
really like this plan, but it's a plan, and it does a lot of obvious things that we like. As far as positional chess is concerned, I would love to see a regroup of the knight here, because this is a beautiful outpost for the knight where it attacks stuff and covers lots of important squares where you want to play. But in general, I would have liked this plan if you had executed it correctly. Now again, you are rushing and getting ahead of yourself. Why would you play this move when you can actually first double up on the h, and now g5 wins the game literally next move? So let me just play it out for you, and that's it. They can't take you now like they could in the game, because after knight takes, queen takes, pawn takes, it's mate.
Yeah.
You need to build it up before you strike. Once again, you are too hasty, and that's just not good enough. There's not gonna be a mate there. I just play rook here, you double up, I play king f8, and then walk away, and I win because I'm a pawn to the good.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've noticed the idea of the breakthrough, but you didn't realize that your position had a lot of static potential in that you can build up this attack. And while I'm speaking, I noticed that rook h5 could be met very annoyingly with e4.
Yep.
So probably you should have to play bishop e4 first to block it off, and then calmly build up this attack.
Yeah.
This is so strong that it's almost impossible to erect a useful defense against it. The only thing I can think of is bishop e7, so that they can play f6 next. But I believe that against this we have the tactical strike takes.
Yeah.
Takes and queen takes. The difference is that the bishop is not on f6 anymore, so they don't have bishop g7 with a tempo. And so now rook h1 followed by mate on one of these squares, I don't see how it would be stopped.
I got frustrated by this game because I could see that, like, in a lot of ways the position was really good, but just not being able to convert that. But this is good.
Yes, so see, this is how patience and tactics and strategy work hand in hand. So bishop e4 basically announces a slow plan of up, doubling, and then actually after that you can choose between taking or playing g5, but g5 is probably more consistent with what we are doing. But if the defender leaves the king side, then it's a whole new scenario. You have to understand that f6 is pending and you can't break that up anymore, so you have to break them now by violence. And that's actually a pretty nice line. I'm very proud of myself. Alright, So, g5, take, 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 take. Oh, your opponent chose to lose a piece. Brilliant. Oh, not quite. I didn't see g6. Okay. Okay, here and here is probably the only active spot where you can go to. Bishop h5 feels very counterintuitive because you're just blocking off your file for the rooks.
Yeah, I think it ends up hurting me as well.
Oh, I bet it would. Now the only question, of course, is that whether they can take here or not. And they very well might be able to. So I might have to eat my words. Yeah. So just back on the diagonal further then. Further back. Yeah, because now you're getting pinned there.
Yeah.
And you very awkwardly even went there, which means that now bishop can't retreat anywhere because he will be taken by check. Oh man, this sucks. Like, you really should have played here bishop g4.
Yep.
Objectively speaking, we are lost here, but it's an endgame, anybody's game. Whereas now you just, yeah, gone. It is a major pity that you lost this game because it had got so much potential to turn out to be in your favor, especially hereabouts. With a more patient approach, it would have been an awesome game. Alright, a few more and then we'll move on. Ah, that's not nice. What happened here? G6, holy moly.
Oh, I was so proud of the line that I saw here. I was so proud, and then I just blundered mate in 2. I actually told Becky about it right after it happened. I was so, so disappointed, because I had this sweet combination, and it looked like it was working, save for the fact that it immediately blundered into a mate in 2.
Yeah, in this position I would play d3 and collect the whole point. That's what I would do. Whoa! What is happening here?
Because then when the king takes, the queen comes out to g4 and the knight's hanging.
But that's guarded by the bishop, isn't it?
No, because it's pinned.
I don't see how it's pinned. The king is there.
Oh no, wait. Something else happens and the king goes back.
Well, but it doesn't have to. What do you do if I just go back here?
Then I was hoping to have some checks or have some kind of...
Yeah, this was a very, very premature and unjustified attack. Like, what you're doing essentially here is throwing away a piece, an attacking piece. Why wouldn't you do something like queen e2?
I think I was going for fireworks.
Yeah, too early. Like, if you look at it realistically, you have got these dudes a million miles away. Your queen is not part of the attack. And really, strictly speaking, he's better developed than you. The reason why you're winning here is because this awkward pin. So before you go for fireworks, you have to realistically measure up whether you have enough attackers than not.
Yeah.
The rule of thumb is that you need at least one more attacker than defender to succeed in an attack. Now, when I look at this position, I'm not saying it, because even this knight I consider to be a defender because it's close enough to cover important squares. Obviously, the queen is a defender, if not directly, then indirectly, and the bishop is a defender too, so in fact, you are behind here. So you badly needed to bring out your dudes, and then keep on attacking with that. I really feel for you, by the way, because that was a perfectly played game until here. I would have preferred d3 here, as per mentioned before, because it also develops the bishop wherever you want to go.
Yeah.
And it just feels safer altogether. Yeah. Oh man, what a pity. Yeah, actually your only chance here to stay in the game would have been to take this with a check, then take this with a check, then they go wherevs, and then you attend to the mating thread. But you now see why it is difficult to execute an attack successfully when this bishop can't even develop right now. So you literally need to play 2 moves to get out, but you can't even do that because there is a mate threat here.
Yeah.
Alrighty. The opening part was really good though. Okay, what's happening here? Knight f6. Is it something that you play on a regular basis against the King's Gambit, or was it just a pre-move?
Oh, I don't know anything about the King's Gambit.
Okay, we will take this pawn. That's for future reference.
Okay.
And then d5 next.
Okay.
Clearly he doesn't know anything about the King's Gambit either. So that's handy when they play moves like d3. Okay, try to avoid playing moves like d6. So we play chess in the center, and the center leaves here.
Yep.
Okay, so you feel often that you need to defend pawns and stuff. Go aggro. If they take here, you push it in, and then you take that, and you are already far ahead. If they take you here, you take them here.
Sure.
Okay, and you already have a very important pawn in the center. If you play like that, then after knight c3 followed by d4, we lost the battle for the center in 4 moves. That's sad. But d3, my lord. Okay. What will you achieve with this pin if I do this to you?
No, not a lot.
So what are we gonna do? Do you take?
Oh, we have to, or else we're gonna
Correct.
fail.
Do you want to swap bishops for knights?
No.
Nah. So this is a premature pin. You should have played here knight c6 and go from there. But given the structure, this pin is highly unlikely to be an unsuccessful one at any point, because I can always kick you out or just simply break it and then kick out your bishop. So for the time being, leave this dude at home. Play bishop e7 because that can't go anywhere else. Castles. And then start to formulate a plan about whether this bishop should come out at all, or you start playing for e takes f4 followed by d5, fighting for the center.
Sure.
That would have been far more justified. Now your opponent is trying very hard to lose a game very quickly here, which is something you will find a lot once again at the 1700 level. So progressing from here on, you will find it's still easy. When you hit the 1900, 2000, that's where normally a plateau comes in. Oh my god. This guy, with the exception of knight f3, he has only played pawn moves so far. That's remarkable. And then knight h5.
Oh dear.
It is interesting, because it seems to me it's hanging. Now I'm well aware of the fact that you want to take this, but this is not how I would like to take advantage of the situation, because again we are falling behind in development and this knight is not going to make it out alive, which means that I will have 2 pieces for the rook. Yeah?
Yeah.
So what I want to do now is to use this diagonal to punish his king and in general his way of playing for what he has done. So the first move I would be looking at in this position is to take here. Because now he simply doesn't have a choice. It's an aggressive move. Remember our checks, capture, threats.
Yeah.
Holy Trinity. So now he has to take. I'm not sure if it's right. I'm just telling you this is how I am calculating in my head. Now you have check and you have check here.
Yeah.
So I'm going with check for the time being, king d3. And now we are a little bit stuck because the queen is hanging. And I would have loved to give a check here, but I can't. And check here, bishop e3. I'm not convinced that we have done enough damage. Although, this is probably not a good point to stop calculating, because d5 looks like a very decent move to crack this king open. And if takes, then knight takes f5 to some extent revitalizes the attack. And also once this happens, my castles here followed by rook d5 is going to bring about new dudes into the action. Other one was queen f2 check, but I think it's actually okay, interesting stuff, because if bishop here we have knight f3 check here.
Oh yeah.
And we are chasing the king again, and that would be not bad to end up with a mate like, you know, something like this. And I'm sure that they will be made somewhere here very soon. Okay, king here, let's mate this king now. What am I not seeing?
Yep.
Oh, maybe just here and then mate. I'm being silly.
Okay.
Right, so I love king hunts, as you can tell. But this is still a little bit speculative. Okay, so if that doesn't work, then I would have opted for d5. And again, still chasing the same idea. but it is a far better version than the previous case because now your bishop is going to join the fray too. Plus, now you have straight access to e4.
Yep.
Okay, so you can already take or be a smarty pan and check and then take. Not to mention that we still have this check option, and now the bishop is also operational, so I think it's borderline losing for black. But as you can see, I'm only looking at aggro moves. I mean, to some extent yours is aggro too. The problem is that it's hanging. But their opponent didn't really care and then resigned. I suppose that he got a little bit angry about this check or annoyed.
That was me that resigned. I actually had to go.
Sorry, I didn't realize that it's 1-0. You had to go.
Yeah.
Oh well, that sucks. But yeah, you had a really good position here. Okay, Josh, time to have a look at some tactics. And you told me that you have done a lot. Now, what I forgot to tell you was that I wanted those puzzle solutions to be written down somewhere.
Okay.
Because I want to see if they are correct, and it's not that I'm not trusting you. I just want, but that's my only way of checking your way of thinking and to see, whether we are on the right track in general with our puzzle solving methodology. So if you don't mind, I would like to ask you to still resolve some with me now, just to see how we are traveling with this business. Let's go with Keres versus Verbach here. Can you see the screen clearly, or it's not really that great?
No, it's okay.
I'm happy to set it up for you on the Lichess board if you want, but I think you can still see it. Okay, so solution to this one. Have you solved this?
Oh, I did solve it. I just
Good.
have to...
Well, you will either have to remember now or resolve. I will be probably happier with resolve, actually.
I just want to make sure I have it.
Yeah, take your time.
Before I spit it out.
It's all good.
So it's knight to f5, pawn takes.
Why not bishop?
There's a bishop there.
Alright, I will pop it up on the board here for you because I want you to see it in a proper way. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm setting it up correctly. Let me just check for 1 second. Yep, alright. I'm very glad that you started with a check, because check is the way of life, and that's how we solve puzzles. That we check the checks. Oh, there's an knight on f6. I knew that I forgot something. Right. So here we go. This is our position. White move, mate in 3. So you said knight f5 check, but that has been ruled out. So we keep on looking for checks, yeah?
Yeah.
All right. What else would look like a sensible check to you here?
Well, there's queen check on h6.
Right. Of course, when I say sensible, I don't really mean sensible. I mean you need to look at every single thing under the sun, because it is hard to argue that this is sensible. But to some extent it is, because the king has to take it, whereupon we have got a beautiful battery, a discovered check aimed at the king. So can you please calculate the line out loud for me?
So it's queen h6, king takes,
Yeah.
rook to h4,
Yeah.
and then the king goes back, and then bishop to h6, and that is mate.
Beautiful. So is it what you had before? Do you recall?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, goody.
Actually, I have the page up on the other window, but the laptop is going very slowly.
No, no, that's all good. It's not that I'm doubting you. I'm just checking if you found it easy or not really. All right. Okay, so what I would like to ask you, Josh, now is to carry on with these, but make sure that you write the solutions down so that I have got some sort of feedback as to where you went wrong and where you went right.
Yep. Yeah, I
Okay.
can do that.
All right. Now let's have a look at a little bit of opening theory, just a little bit. The first thing that I wanted to have a look at with you was a couple of the Sicilian open lines, just a very brief review of what's happening there, so that you feel a little bit more confident about it.
Yeah, cool.
So e4, c5, knight f3, and already we are at a humongous junction where black can play d6, e6, knight c6, a6, g6, knight f6, and these are all legitimate moves. Now, more often than not, you find that the three most common moves here are d6, e6, and knight c6. Against all of those, you play d4. The only one that we don't combat with d4 is a6.
Okay.
This is a very unassuming looking, silly, amateur, newbie move, but in fact it has a lot of venom to it. The idea is that in most Sicilians, the move e5 is really not good when it's played very early, because there is a knight jump to f5 and there is a humongous weak square on d5 that we can exploit.
Yep.
Now, the way how you exploit this mistake is not by immediately jumping in, because then after bishop takes, pawn takes, and d5, we manage to lose the center in a very spectacular way. The way how you punish it is that you sneak in a check first,
Okay.
forcing those bishops off, and then plant the knight on f5, and then plant the next knight on c3, and then d5, and we have got a huge positional advantage due to the backward d6 pawn and the weak square on d5. Okay, now what a6 is trying to do to us is that now after takes, we are not going to be able to give a check. So they attack this pawn here. We got it in a stock standard Sicilian way. Can you tell me what's wrong with pawn e5? Which otherwise would be a brilliantly good move.
Because you've got the queen check on a5.
That's exactly right. Queen check and wins the pawn. So we are forced to play knight c3. And now e5 hits us really hard. And our two stock standard answers to e5 is always knight here or knight here. And neither is playable now, because if knight here, then d5 hurts, which I really hate myself for calling it out, because I wanted you to find it. And the idea, of course, is that we can't take d5 because we dropped this.
Yeah.
And now our center is collapsing. And if we come back to b3, then after bishop b4, threatening e4, bishop d3 and d5, once again, we lost the battle for the center without even fighting for it. And black has managed to equalize at least.
Sure.
Okay, so what we do against this, you can do one of two things. You can play c3 and transpose into a 3c Sicilian variation where a6 in many lines is not a particularly useful move. Or you can play c4, which is far more ambitious, and then play d4 next, and then play as something that we call a Marozzi bind, when you have these two pawns sort of tying their hands in that they can't break up with either of these.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a very powerful way to deal with it. Okay, so d4 takes, knight f6, knight c3 is another major junction. In this position, once again, e5 is bad, because we have got the check and then knight f5, as per seen before. So more often than not, they either play a6, e6, or g6, or different variations. e6 is going to take us to the Scheveningen that you played before with bishop e2, which is a perfectly sound choice. And most of the times, the opening develops like this. Okay? See how all of our pieces are developed?
Yep.
So this is when we start building a plan, and I suggest that you're going to play the Queen E1 variation. The idea behind this is, well, we normally checking King H1 at one point to sort of preempt checks on this diagonal. Knight takes, bishop takes, and then the queen is going to come here, and we are going to try to attack on these two squares as well as pushing these two dudes up.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Alrighty, now going back a bit more. If they play knight c6 here, that transposes us into the Richter-Rauser system, against which the best move is bishop g5. Okay, this is basically a sort of a pre-pin, really, because black is going to play e6 at one stage anyway. Plus, very often you want to take this knight and damage the pawn structure a bit.
Sure.
Now, what do you think we will do against e5 here?
We'll take the knight.
Which one and why?
So we'll take the knight on c6 because.
Okay, what do we gain by that?
There's pawns on c6 and d6 look like they can be weak.
Do they? I would agree with the d6 pawn being weak if there was another pawn next to it. As soon as there is a pawn next to it, that gives rise to opportunities for them to progress forward in the center.
Yeah.
What squares will become weak after e5?
All the light squares around.
Correct. So this is hugely counterintuitive because you just patched up the most weak square. That's the weakest square, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so knight c6 is totally off the agenda. So where else could we go?
That knight could go to f5.
Yes. Now, how do we feel about this now? Is it good or bad?
Well, they're gonna get d5 in.
How?
No, they're not.
Okay, so let me re-ask the question then. So, is it good or not? What will they do?
Oh, they could. Yeah, they'll take the knight and then play. They'll take the knight with the bishop.
Okay. And then what? Are you happy to be white here?
Well, no, not really.
No? Why?
Well, they've got the center now.
See, this is an illusion that they have got the center here because these pawns can't go anywhere. The truth is that it's actually you who has got the center because bishop e7, which is more or less forced, will be followed up by, at one point, by take. I would rather play bishop c4 here. So let me just play out a scenario for you. Bishop takes, bishop d5, followed by knight e4.
Okay.
Who has got the center?
So we just get to play around on the light squares.
Exactly. These are humongously weakened squares. The pawns are rigid, which means that they are weak. Well, e5 is not because it's guarded by d6, but d6 is weak because it's backward and it can't go forward. Okay, and the best part of this whole strategy is that whilst the white squares are horrendously weak, normally what you find is that then you are going to be found weak on the opposite color complex on black. Not the case. Like this knight move is a total lemon because once you are castled, you're just going to play knight e4 and kick it out with c3.
Sure.
Okay, so this is why chess will become a little bit more complex and difficult because slightly different questions will have dramatically different answers. So not what the difference is between this e5 and this e5 is that here after knight f5 takes d5 pretty much ends the battle for the center in black's favor because of we managed to sneak in a pair of moves with knight c6 and then bishop g5. This pin plays a huge role in that now d5 is no longer possible because we take here and we take the free pawn. And if they don't play d5 right now, they never will. And that's really your job to make sure that that will never ever happen. And that's why I planted the bishop on c4, and we can go from there. And by the way, the reason why I put the bishop on d5 is because I couldn't resist the temptation to put the knight in here. But you can very comfortably just play stock standard and place the knight on d5 and then play c3. And then again, this knight dominates the board. Black lacks plans, and in general, white's position is just fantastic.
Yeah, cool. What's the name of the system again?
This is called the Richter-Rouser. Mostly referred to it by players as the Rouser. And the correct move, by the way, here is e6, after which we play queen d2, bishop e7, and then castle queenside, the castle, and then we play f4, and a very complex position arises where we tend to attack on the king side, they tend to attack on the queen side. Yep. Fun stuff. All right. Now, next one. If they played knight c6, takes, and e5, and I know that you feel like I'm confusing you, but trust me, it will be all good and dandy in the end. I should have actually put it in the study for us, which I still might be able to do, I think, somehow, and then just give it to you, but I will give you chess-based files anyway. So, e5. Are we going to go knight f5 or not?
It doesn't. Oh, I don't think so, because then they've got d5.
And if I take?
They'll take the knight with their bishop.
And if I take?
They can swap queens.
And I take back?
Recapture.
And how do you assess that position?
Well, they can castle and we can't, so that's not very good.
Yep, although this is an endgame, so that's not necessarily the end of the world, but there are other factors that we need to consider. So what else would you say about that position?
Yes, we've got the 2 pawn islands, and they've got some broken up pawns.
Yes. However, the main issue is that they are far better developed, which will come down to the king, because it will have to make at least one more move to be able to connect the rooks. Second is the center, and that will decide the issue to white's favor, to black's favor slightly.
Sure.
So, long story short, no, we can't play knight f5. So where do we go?
So my knee-jerk reaction would be to take the knight and then play f4.
Okay, so we have already established that this is always bad, because e5 creates a huge weak square on d5, and by taking it, we just voluntarily give up on it. Plus, it always strengthens the center by supporting d5. Okay, so almost exclusively in the Sicilian, you don't take this.
Okay.
Because that just supports black in so many ways. It supports the center, supports the b file counterplay, and it gives nothing to us at all.
Okay, all right.
So the rule of thumb is that in general, if we can't go here, number 2 pick is to go this way.
Okay.
Okay, for 2 reasons: because it goes forward, and because it actually creates a threat of giving a check there, and creating an awkward scenario for the pawns where they are separated like that. So they're forced to play d6, against which you have got 2 very sound moves. One of them is simply to develop the knight here, with the plain intention of exploiting the weak square, or again, to create a bind where this pawn on d6 is never going to go anywhere ever again, and it's constantly exposed on this on this d file. But the downside of playing c4 is that now we have got a weak square in our cam too. So if black were to plant a knight on here, we can't really kick it out with a pawn, so we have to cover it with pieces, which is always a little bit of a pain. But we'll get into the theory of this later. And at last but not at least, we have got the so-called Sveshnikov variation, which is super popular when they play e5 here. Now what it does is that knight f5 is still very bad on account of d5, almost the same variation as before. We take, they take, we take, they swap the queens, and then they take back.
Yep.
And so where do we go?
To b5.
Correct. And after d6, now we don't even have the c4 option. So the only thing that we can grab now is the d5 square. You never jump into a weak square where you can't retake with pieces. There is a theoretical variation here with knight takes, and pawn takes, but it goes against chess principles. What you want to do is to eliminate the defender of a weak square and then go in.
Yep. Yep, that makes
And
sense.
then after a6, knight a3, and b5, black is basically burning a lot of bridges behind by creating lots of weaknesses, but at the same time we have got an utterly ugly knight on the side of the board, and normally play either continues with knight d5 or takes and pawn takes and then knight d5, and we have got a super dynamic scenario at our hands where we're trying to exploit a lot of positional weaknesses. The weak square on d5, the backward pawn on d6, the double pawns on here. These two will be targeted later on by a4. But at the same time, there is a latent or hiding dynamics in this position that black wants to exploit by playing moves like bishop e6, bishop g7, and then f5, trying to crack it open, and then take, and then f5 again with the other pawn. And if these two bishops come alive, then we are in for a hell of a fight. It's a very, very fascinating and exciting line in the Sicilian, one of the most popular, for exactly this reason, because it is a very exciting clash between positional weaknesses and dynamic features that, one side try to exploit versus the other. Awesome fun. So I'm going to cut it off here, Josh, and I will probably put this in the chess base file for you. And then we will have a starting point for the Sicilian at least.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I hope that sounds good for you. And we'll go from there next time. Please keep going with solving those puzzles and make sure that you write down those solutions for me. Did I give you a pawn ending by any chance as a homework?
We were looking at some of them, but oh yes, we did with the
I thought so.
Yeah.
So what was that?
So it was the two pawns that are doubled. They're on c5 and c3, kings on g3, and the other kings on a8 or something like that.
I'm not sure which one I've given you.
I might be able to jump in Lichess and...
Was it this one? Alright, never mind. You know what? I'm going to leave it for now. But make sure that you do have the solution written down for that too. And next time I see you, I'm going to check both your puzzles and the pawn ending, and I will look it up what I have given to you as well.
Okay.
Okay,
cool.
if that sounds cool. All right, now when will I see you next?
Probably this time next week, or maybe an evening this time next week.
Yep, that sounds perfect to me.
Okay, cool.
So let's just stay in touch via Skype, and I might send you some extra stuff to work on. And yeah, keep up the good work on playing online as much as you can. And hopefully by the time I call you next week, it will be 1800.
Yeah, there we go.
Alrighty, mate. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. And if you don't mind, I might actually post this so that your fame in the world of chess will begin with a YouTube video.
There you go. I love it.
Alrighty, mate. Thanks a lot. And yeah, I will hear from you soon.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Alright. Cheers, mate. See ya.
Bye.